Hello and welcome to the first Politics at Jack and Sam's Daily of the new week. Thank goodness half term is over for those that had to endure the budget and half term at the same time, which gives you everything you need to know about British politics, however packed the agenda, in under 20 minutes.
And it is quite a week we have in store, is it not? It is Monday the 4th of November, a day before the American election, a day before Guy Fawkes night. Probably ought to say something about fireworks and explosiveness and things like that, but we'll move on to the terrible metaphors later. As you probably know, if you listen to this regularly, my name is Jack Blanchard from Politico. With me is Sam Coates from Sky News. Sam, we're going to do our best to talk about British politics as much as we can this week, but clearly things are about to get overshadowed completely by the result in Washington as America goes to the polls tomorrow, and we're going to have to spend a fair amount of time this week talking about America as well, I guess. And
trying to unpick the British end so much as anything can be unpicked in the sort of firestorm of the next few days. We've also got the opening hours of Kemi Badenoch's time in charge of the Conservative Party in the last 5 minutes. There have been some appointments. She's just decided who's going to be the joint Conservative Party chairman. It may not be figures that you've heard of. Nigel Huddleston, who's a Tory MP, and Lord Johnston, Dominic Johnson, who set up a hedge fund alongside Jacob Rees-Mogg. But why what she's doing matters and what the pitfalls might be, well, we're going to talk about that in a little bit, alongside whatever we think matters. Alongside a bit about where we think the race is in America ahead of tomorrow. Shall we just whiz through the week ahead first, Sam, before we get on to Monday's events? As I say, it's a properly packed week this. Today we've got a big Prime Minister speech up in Glasgow on the small boats crisis. We have Kemi Badenoch, as you say, the new Conservative Party leader, will be announcing her shadow cabinet over the next 24 hours. The budget is still a thing, believe it or not, and we'll be debating that in the Commons all day today. And it is the last day of campaigning over in America before the US goes to the polls tomorrow. Guy Fawkes night on Tuesday is the night that the American election results start to come rolling in. I'm sure we'll all be glued to the TV. Sky with coverage all night will be a must watch. The main business tomorrow, Tuesday, will be more unpicking of the budget, with the Office of Budget Responsibility and the Institute for Fiscal Studies giving evidence to the Treasury Select Committee on the budget. I have to say, Jack, I am very struck how pissy people in government and the Labour Party are at the way that the Institute for Fiscal Studies did its post-match analysis. It's interesting. They're getting grumpy with the IFS. It took the Tories some years to get there. I feel like Paul Johnson is already somebody being targeted by this government rather earlier on into this since the election.
Yeah, Paul Johnson's on his way out from the IFS, isn't he? And I did think when he came sort of over the top before the budget and announced that the decision to hike employers' end of national insurance contributions was a breach of the Labour manifesto, felt a little bit like it had gone a bit further than the IFS normally does. They normally sit there crunching numbers and saying, well, 6 and 6 makes 12, and therefore all these people are going to get screwed in the budget. That was kind of a political judgment, and I think that's the thing that's really upset Labour. Maybe he's a bit more gung-ho now he's on his way out of the job. But anyway, on Wednesday, we will be waking up possibly to a new president-elect of the United States, or possibly to like days and days and days of drama as they recount every single vote in Pennsylvania and so on. But we may or may not know who's going to be the next president Wednesday morning. What we will definitely see on Wednesday is PMQs and the first outing for the new leader of the opposition, Kemi Badenoch. I am so excited about PMQs, Sam. Kemi v Keir is going to be lots and lots of fun, I reckon. Kemi Badenoch, someone you know is going to create news every time she opens her mouth, and that should make that a pretty interesting battle to watch. Also on Wednesday in Parliament, we have Rachel Reeves giving evidence to the Treasury Select Committee on the budget. First time she's been before the new Treasury Committee, and that should be pretty interesting as well. And then the weirdest thing that's happening this week, and I can't get my head around it, is Parliament is going into recess on Wednesday afternoon until next Monday. So everyone takes Thursday off. I haven't yet found anyone who's been able to explain why, but that is what is happening, because MPs clearly need their Thursday off to get back to the constituencies, so that's what they're doing.
On Thursday, however, Keir Starmer is not putting his feet up. He's jetting to Hungary for the second meeting that he'll attend of the European Political Community, that Emmanuel Macron-led organisation that's pan-European, not just EU, looks at problems across the continent of Europe. Plus, we've got the Bank of England interest rates decision, which may have been impacted by the budget. There's just a bigger chance of a hold rather than a drop. And the US Federal Reserve is also going to announce its interest rate decision as well.
Friday, the Reform UK caravan is off to Wales for a conference, and that's more interesting than it sounds. Reform UK are putting loads and loads of effort into Wales. They think that because of the voting system over there and because of the politics of Wales, they've got a pretty good chance at the next Welsh Assembly elections in 2026 to become the main opposition party over there and really start to get a foothold in an actual legislature, and that is quite a big deal for them. So keep an eye on that on Friday. And then on Sunday, Sam, King Charles will be leading the Remembrance Sunday service at the Cenotaph. We'll see all the political leaders there. We'll see all the former prime ministers, I guess, there. At least those the ones that are in the country. I saw Boris Johnson appears to be in America enjoying the US election, but don't know whether he's coming back for that or not. But anyway, always a very solemn occasion, and you'll see all the pictures of that kicking around on Sunday afternoon.
The main thing the government wants to talk about today is an announcement being made by Keir Starmer up in Glasgow at a major conference for Interpol, the kind of global policeman. Do you want to just outline what it is that Keir Starmer's going to say? Yeah,
so he's making a speech there today, and he's going to set out what he says is his personal mission to smash the people smuggling gangs. Basically, this is Small Boats Week for the government, and they've decided to switch all of the government's focus and attention onto that, and it starts today with this Keir Starmer speech up in Glasgow. There is an announcement overnight that's come from Downing Street setting out some new steps. They are doubling the funding, or doubling the announced funding, for the new Border Security Command thingy that they were promising before the election, and they have now set up, which is Labour's main policy response to the cross-channel crisis. The funding goes up from 75 to 150 million quid over the next couple of years. They have set out a load of things that they're going to be spending some of this money on, including, deep breath, Sam, state-of-the-art surveillance kit, including the exciting-sounding maritime drones. There'll be extra cash for the Crown Prosecution Service to fast-track smuggler cases. There are plans to work much more closely with French prosecutors to actually put some of these people in prison. There'll be new cameras tracking vehicles in France. They're planning covert audio and video kit for going undercover. There's going to be an intelligence unit. There is a whole operational package here, which they say, or Labour say, is a genuine policy response to the small boats crisis, that they're really getting down into the nitty gritty of how this money will be spent. And the reason they're doing that, Sam, is they're trying to contrast that with the Tory approach, which was to throw hundreds of civil servants and hundreds of millions of pounds at this Rwanda policy, which never obviously got a single flight off the ground, never got a single person deported, and instead saying, look, we are spending money on real tangible things that will actually get people locked up and stop this smuggling from happening. And now whether any of that actually happens remains to be seen, but that is the idea, is to contrast that approach completely. Practical steps to get people in prison, rather than, you know, this big idea of somehow one day deporting people and that might put people off coming.
I just wanted to sort of put the Border Security Command announcement in a bit of context, and I was doing some research this morning, and you know, the government are making a big deal of this. There is op-ed by Keir Starmer in The Express, by Yvette Cooper in The Telegraph. But very irritatingly, I'm just trying to work out how much of it is genuinely new. So to that end, I was doing some Googling. On the 17th of September, Jack, of this year, there was a press release by this government about £75 million new investment for the Border Security Command. OK, so today they are doubling that. But then you go down the 17th of September press release, and they announced that the capabilities of the new Border Security Command are going to be covert cameras and state-of-the-art monitoring. It's going to be new intelligence collection with UK police forces and other parties, you know, and on and on and on. It's really, really not that different. The word drone, I think, doesn't appear in the previous
maritime
one.
Drone. Be clear.
Maritime
I don't know
drone.
if that goes underwater or just looks at the sea. I'm not clear on that. But either way, it's exciting.
Basically, this looks like a re-announcement with a tiny bit of extra detail, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is, I just want to put this. So the new bit that's beyond question is the £75 million additional. Now, £75 million is a lot of money, but in government spending terms and in Whitehall department terms, really isn't a comparatively large sum.
It's a rounding error, right? It's a rounding error.
It really is. So just look at, I went back into the budget document and the Office for Budget Responsibility documents alongside the budget, right? If you look at the Home Office's budget, and Border Security Command are basically part of the Home Office, then Yvette Cooper has had to give up 3% of her budget in real terms this year and 3.3% of her budget in 25-26 in order to hand savings back to Rachel Reeves. And so next year, the Home Office is saving, partly because of the scrapping of Rwanda, £1.4 billion. So a tiny, tiny fraction of the money that's being saved is being funneled into this thing upon which Labour is putting huge amounts of kind of political pressure and investing huge amount of hope in it. But the kind of comparative sums there are not particularly large. So good luck everybody with that amount of money. But don't think that amount of money is in of itself particularly transformative. In essence, also, this is just Labour making another money announcement, given most of the substance seems to be out there already. It is doing what they did last week in the budget, again, which is the story is the sum. And when I kind of listened across kind of various outlets this morning, the story is the sum of money that Labour's announcing. And that is going to be fascinating when we come on in a moment to talk about how the Tories are likely to do politics under Kemi Badenoch, because I think that approach is going to come under particular scrutiny from the new leader of the opposition. But I do ask the question that, the government are going all in, changing the conversation topic. But guys, 17th of September, the release was not that different. Do you think we don't use Google?
All I would say to that is it wasn't very long ago that we made this point the other day, we were slamming our heads against the screens going, why aren't they doing anything at all? We now at least have a functioning Downing Street operation in the sense that they have a grid. They are choosing the topics of conversation. They're choosing them quite wisely. The small boats figures are really bad this year. This is a really serious situation. More than 31,000 migrants have crossed since January. That's 17% higher than in the same period last year. We have a new leader of the opposition who essentially starts work today. She's obviously going to go very hard at them on immigration. We see Nigel Farage's Reform UK numbers ticking up in terms of support and increasing amount of anger about this topic. The government is trying to show it has got a grip on it, and it has created a small boats week in its grid. There was this speech today. There's some big ministerial meeting planned tomorrow with all the key ministers getting together for the start of a monthly session in Downing Street on this topic. Keir Starmer's team are briefing that he'll be raising the migration at the EPC summit with the other European leaders in Hungary on Thursday. They are at least trying to lead this conversation wisely, even if it is only with a small amount of money, in a way that just a few weeks ago, and it's only been a month, Sam, since Sue Gray resigned of her own free will from Downing Street. But you can definitely see at least a more professional operation in the comms and the approach of trying to grab the conversation than anything we were seeing in the first 3 months of the regime.
Let's just very briefly talk about the other government stuff before we go on to the Tories. We are having to do a bit of post-budget mop-up today. Environment Secretary Steve Reid is meeting the farmers. Business Secretary Johnny Reynolds is meeting business leaders. Both groups sort of understandably upset, but Labour made clear choices that those were places that were going to be squeezed in order to fund the NHS. They've decided that is the right political priority, and so inevitably there's going to be some grumbling, and ministers just have to suck that up. I think Downing Street will be watching ministers very closely to check that they don't deviate from the line and remain loyal to Rachel Reeves and don't blame the Treasury for all of this. But I just want to reflect on one thing, that on Thursday, the day after the budget, there was a bit of, not massive, but there was a bit of an adverse reaction to the budget. The markets, from what we understood, and we talked about this on Thursday, felt that she offered a bigger budget with fewer guardrails than they were expecting in terms of borrowing. that premium, that amount of money, the higher cost that investors are paying for government, are determined to pay for government debt, that premium is still there. The cost of UK government debt went up in the half an hour after the budget on Wednesday, and trading closed on Friday still at that sort of roundabout that higher level that it spiked to. It's not big sums, but given that stability is change was the whole promise of the Labour election campaign, to do anything that surprises the market still feels like something of a warning signal to this Chancellor about what she can and can't do in future. And I think the markets as policemen is a theme that went away as a news story over the weekend, but hasn't gone away as a feeling amongst some Labour MPs and some people in government that they are now very conscious of that. Anyway.
Should we talk about the Tories? Kemi Badenoch is the new leader of the Conservative Party, so I'm sure everyone listening to this already knows. She will be making her first speech at Tory HQ this morning. She is in the process of appointing her first shadow cabinet as we speak. We saw the first appointment last night, which was the chief whip. Obviously, that's the first appointment because you need a chief whip by your side as you appoint the rest of your shadow cabinet. The new chief whip is Rebecca Harris. She was the deputy for the last few months. She's been in the whip's office for quite a while. And Sam, you told us about the new joint chairman of the Conservative Party has been announced this morning. I guess the next one will be the new shadow chancellor. I was told it's likely to be Andrew Griffith, but I don't think we know for sure. And then I think we'll get the rest of the appointments over the course of the day. And I guess the main thing we'll be watching for from a macro point of view, although you and I will be very interested in the individuals, most people probably won't, is how broad a church is Kemi Badenoch going for versus how much is she rewarding her supporters? Is she trying to bring in all aspects of the Conservative Party into prominent positions, or is she mostly just giving the big jobs to the people who've backed her all the way and the people she is close to? And we'll have to wait and see on that.
And how much of the shadow cabinet act as a brake on her instincts, and how much as a sort of accelerant? It strikes me if Andrew Griffiths does become shadow chancellor, his sort of intellectual and ideological approach is quite similar to hers. I think at a profound level, he thinks that we need to take a long, hard look at the way that the state operates and the government works and whether or not there are too many quangos. My question, and what I think the biggest challenge for Kemi Badenoch is that she wants a period of reflection of everything. In her conference speech, she talked about literally reviewing everything that government does. And, there's a long, hard review that's about to begin. But there is some nervousness, even amongst the shadow cabinet until this morning, so Rishi Sunak's sort of last shadow cabinet, that you've got to offer something a bit more retail and a bit more consumer friendly. You can't spend years just wondering what percentage the size of the state could be. That is exactly the argument that the Labour Party want to have. Last week, the Conservative Party held a big protest on budget morning, or the day before the budget, about restoring the winter fuel allowance. Is that Kemi's policy? Does she believe it? Will she be able to say whether or not restoring it is a possibility within a year or 2 years? I think endlessly suggesting that everything could be slashed is a danger for the Conservatives. But while you are reviewing anything, Labour will be able to seize the opportunity and make that accusation. So there's a sort of, there's a question for the Conservative Party. Do the people of Kettering, for instance, really care about the sort of ideological debate the Tories are about to have, or do they just want reassurance that in 5 years' time, if they vote Tory, the NHS is still going to work?
I mean, I think that fair question is one Tory is saying to me there, the fact is that nobody is going to listen to us for a couple of years now. It doesn't really matter what we do. There's no point in adopting any policy positions. What we need to do is have this debate within the party and get ourselves in a position to come forward with a decent policy platform in 2028 or whenever it is, because you announce policies now. We've seen it with oppositions in the past. You end up having to scrap those policies. Remember the £28 billion for green stuff that Labour came up with soon after, maybe a year after Keir Starmer was installed as leader, ended up getting ditched by the time we got to election because the economic context had changed so much. There's not a lot of point in oppositions coming up with big policies in the early years of a parliament because they often have to reverse them anyway, and that I think is where Kemi Badenoch is at. The truth is, Sam, that much as the people listening to this podcast might be fascinated by the fate of the Tory party, the rest of the nation, I fear, are not. We better just talk very briefly about America, Sam, because your buzzer's about to go and we haven't even got onto it yet. I mean, this is actually the thing that is gripping quite a lot of Whitehall.
And there it is.
Nobody in Whitehall knows who's going to win any better than anybody else. We know this race is 50-50. There's absolutely nothing in it. Something like 80 million people in America have already voted. But nothing is going to matter more this year in global politics than who wins this election to Keir Starmer. And so I think they'll all be watching with bated breath.
I've got nothing to add. That's absolutely right.
We'll do it properly tomorrow.
Have a lovely day.
You too.
Stay with us for a massive week. Talk to you soon.
Bye.